CFR Network, CFR News, good day, good night, all back in the lab. Special, extra special guests on with me today. We had to cut it short last year due to technical difficulties, and we've re-established contact, I think, at a very poignant and perfect time. I have Angelique with me, and I have Mama Mac on with me. Good day, welcome to the broadcast.
Oh, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You're most welcome. You're most welcome. Technical difficulties or not, we in the building and we're gonna get it done. We're gonna shed some light. We're gonna share some good news. We're gonna talk about the future most importantly, and we're obviously gonna go and delve into a little bit of the past. But you know, all praise to the Most High. We've had some excellent news in regards to McKinney. So take it away if you can try and paint as a vivid picture of what has led up to this excellent news in the clemency.
He recently had a clemency hearing on Monday. They voted unanimously to grant him clemency, or immediate parole rather. So what happens now is we have the governor has to sign off on the recommendation by the board, and then after that they will schedule a parole hearing, and then once that's completed, he should be released.
Perfect. So what kind of, without putting, you know, we can never know the specific date. Are we looking a couple of months, maybe, you know, maybe by sort of autumn sort of time?
Before the end of the year, you know, what the governor here has been doing, he's reviews cases typically once every quarter. You know, after that, they send a recommendation and they have to schedule a parole hearing. So we're expecting before the end of the year, but we're not really sure what that process will, you know, that time frame will.
Okay. So in essence, from what you've just said and from what I've read, this is just basically a paper exercise, right?
To our knowledge, yes.
So Mac's gonna be home real soon before the end of this year, 2021.
Yes.
Give thanks. Give thanks. So how are you feeling about this here, Mama Mac?
I'm very happy, of course, and I'm very, I guess I'm very relieved, you know, and it's just been a long journey, 21 years fighting Mac's case. So finally we have some light, you know, at the end of the tunnel. So I'm very happy. My family, my husband is very happy. My Mac's other siblings, and of course his wife and his son and his stepkids. I mean, we're just happy. We just want him home. Just want him home. He missed out on a whole lot, so many years. Missed out on Christmas, grandchildren being born. It's been tiring, and that's the hardest part of this whole thing is the years of him missing out on family events and family things that happens, like, you know, grandkids being born, like I said, and children growing up, and just missed out on a whole lot of things in those 21 years. But I'm just thankful to God that things that God has blessed him to be released real soon.
Definitely. And you've highlighted in detail, that there is a lot of experiences that Mac has missed out, being incarcerated for 21 years, but for a crime he did not commit. But in the same token, I've been reading, and I'm pretty sure you can fill me in with a lot more detail. Now with the time he's spent in there, he's not just, you know, gone into a shell and not done anything. He's been very productive within that correctional facility. Can you just throw some accolades out in regards to some of the excellent mentoring work he's
Like that
doing?
one. He's been a trustee. There was started as a trustee pretty early on. He's been a certified mentor with several programs. He's mentored younger inmates and different people throughout his incarceration. He's actually won 2 humanitarian awards. He's worked on his college degree. He's, you know, certifications. He's stayed busy and stayed positive. And I think that that's the most important thing that's kept him from, being drawn, into like a depression or anything like that, because it weighs heavily. I know if it weighs heavily on us every day, it has to be a million times harder on him. But his entire way of dealing with it is just to continuously move forward and create positivity in someone's life. And I've had people that have been locked up for years, and even more recently, just talk about what an impact that his words and just his being have had on them, to just inspire them to be a better person.
So that is excellent news, and trustly, not only the people who are incarcerated with Mac are learning these lessons, but people who have maybe come across his story, the youngsters, the older generation who grew up listening to Mac, can see the highs, the lows, the success, and see that he still remains strong. He's still a positive person, as you said, which is a major thing. Depression, I can imagine, well, I couldn't imagine really what he's going through, or what anybody would go through being locked up for such a long period of time. Even for me, a day's too long, never mind 21 years. A lot of people do suffer from major depressions. They turn to drugs, alcohol, etc. So it's a testament that he's continuing on the on the right path.
Right.
Yes, he's been pretty positive. He's been positive since he's been in prison. And I do know that even if I know it weighs on him sometimes. It has to, he's only human. And but doesn't he doesn't let my husband and I know sometimes how if he's having a bad day or whatever, he just try to keep positive for us, you know. And I know it could be a hard situation. I mean, I don't, like you said, I don't know if I can deal with that 21 years. So it has to weigh on you mentally and physically. But throughout it, I believe by him doing all the getting involved in all these different programs he's been doing, I believe that helped him mentally. That really helped him, and he was able to be involved in music pretty heavily, because he became the president of the music association.
Excellent.
And so, and then he would, he had a band, right?
Yeah, the music association was made of like 20 some odd different bands, but he played keyboard for I don't even know how many of them.
Yeah.
So he taught keyboard lessons. Like, I remember him telling me about that a long time ago. He was like, I have to go teach keyboard. And it didn't, again, that he meant like musically. I kept thinking about like, I was thinking about like typing or something, but he taught a lot of those guys. Even there was one guy that actually became pretty good. And Kelly was like, you have no idea how far he's come in just a couple of months. But the guy was telling me at one point how he just always was really positive and would be like, no, I'm trying this, whatever. He's like, I wanted to give up so many times, but you know, that I think it's just his nature.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
What you reckon? I know obviously we're all individuals and stuff, but it has to have come from mom and pops, man, and the whole family. Outside of obviously, you've put everything you did to create, McKinney as a youngster, but he's now grown into an adult, and then obviously now he's had 21 years, like where you
Yes.
haven't really had that ability to really give him any more major input. So, like, do we put this down to him singularly, but also with the overall support from the family, giving him that extra sort of boost to be able to sort of push through this year?
Yes, yes. I mean, so with he has so much family support. My husband and I, we've been married for 44 years. We have 6 children together, and so he has 5 siblings, and we all support him 100% in any and everything. We were supportive of him even before he went to prison. And also, Mac has a lot of friends, and we are a big family, not just his siblings, but I mean, we are a huge family. Grandmother, he has 2 grandmothers that's still alive. Ooh, a lot of boatloads of aunties and uncles and cousins. I mean, we have a really big family on both sides, my husband's side and my side of the family. Mac has a huge fan base. I mean,
Mm,
he has fans all over the world, and I'm not exaggerating. And so, with all this help and support, I think it sometimes get overwhelming for him when he really think about when we talk about all the fan base he has. I think it gets a little overwhelming for him, but
mhm,
at the end of the day, he really appreciate that, and I think he draws strength from the fact that he has all this support because being in prison, there's most of the time these young men and women that's in prison, they don't have that kind of support. If they
mm,
have a little small family support, if they're lucky enough to just have family support, they're blessed. But you know, um, so for him to have that kind of support is a blessing. But I do know that so many people in prison do not have that type of support,
Right.
and it's unfortunate and it's sad, really.
I mean, I think it's a situation that prison it's not just punishing the person in there. You know,
mm,
it's taxing on everyone. You know, whether you're
Yeah,
the person's parents, their kids, their wife, you know, whatever the case may be. It's not.
right.
It's hard because you feel like part of you is,
It's like we all
and
in
we're all
prison.
in there too. And
Yeah,
we also bear the burden of trying to make sure that they have what they need. Yeah, and, you know,
right.
in McKinley's case, he's not really going to tell you too much because he doesn't want to stress us out, you know. But it's definitely it's a it's a family burden, and I think that it's not his fault. He didn't create that situation, and we are here to support him. But I guess my point being is that not everybody's built like that. You have people that they have a million other things going on in their life, and maybe they just can't handle the stress or the everything that comes with it. It's not that they don't love their loved one. It's just that it's a lot, and
It really is.
especially year after year after year after year. I mean, there's some guys up there that we've seen that they've been in there 40 plus years. And it's really a matter of their entire family is like dead or old, and they can't travel or they can't support them. It's unfortunate because I think that it helps people, it motivates people to want to do right. Like just seeing their family and having that connection gives them strength to keep going or not slide back in a lot of cases. A lot of people, especially if they have like addiction, things like
yeah.
that. It's definitely uh, the system's definitely not designed, you know, to motivate people or have a
The
support
rehab
system.
people feel
Yeah.
like they
To
claim they do.
rehabilitate, yeah,
Like they claim.
like they claim. And I had a friend tell me that the system is not broken; it's perfectly designed to do what it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And I think that she was very correct in saying that. Like, it's the right people make the right money. You know, you've got it's. I mean, in so many ways, it is broken, but
But it's a big business. Though.
It is. It is.
Especially here in Louisiana, it's a big business.
Yeah, we have. I think we're back on top with the #1 incarceration rate in the world because the U.S. has the highest incarceration rate.
Yeah, and
We
that's
go neck
that.
and neck with Oklahoma. We switch.
Okay, and that's
Nice.
and that's clearly down to the pardon self, the amount of trespassing laws, the fines. I mean, it's America is very money orientated.
Yes.
Yes.
We
Yes,
get
very
fines.
much.
Yeah, we get fines over here, traffic, violations, for instance, like not wearing a seatbelt. That's only new as of maybe 10 years. You'd get, like a £60 fine and whatnot. Speeding, obviously. But it seems like any kind of thing. Oh yeah, you've parked on double yellows. We're gonna slap you with a fine. We're gonna put a boot on
Tow
your
your
wheel.
car.
Tow it. This is it. Jaywalking. We're gonna do you. And if you don't pay that fine, we're gonna send a warrant out for you. It just, as you say, it's an industry is created.
And it makes so much sense. If you can't afford to pay the fines, do you really think that you can afford to get yourself out of jail? Probably not. It's
So
not.
they get paid for
Yeah.
you being in jail,
Right.
so it doesn't
That-
matter. It's a
pays the right
win-win for
people.
them anyway.
Yeah, and it's just.
It's insanity, but the powers that shouldn't be, unfortunately, have created and molded society, and they have created what is deemed a prison industrial complex, where unfortunately high rates of African American or Afro American males and females are disproportionately in prison. You've got,
Right.
especially in the South, you've got crooked police officers, defrauding the system in regards to planting evidence, planting dope on drugs, making incorrect statements, abusing their power, and putting young black males into the prison system and making them become systemized, because obviously we know once you come out of jail, that is now on your record. Now,
Right.
if you want to seek employment, now you've had your epiphany. You've done petty crime as a youngster. You've got caught. You went to jail for 2, 3 years, and you realize, look, I've had enough of this. I want to try and live straight now. How does that person reintroduce themselves into society? That with all the good intentions and will, they will try and walk the straight and narrow, but based upon how the system is, you have a criminal record, we're not going to hire you, or we'll hire you but for less wages, etc. They will be exploited to the point where they'll either live a very meager lifestyle, an existence, or they'll say, look, I'm not doing this no more. I'm going to go back to selling drugs or doing whatever badness I was
Go
doing.
back to prison again.
Exactly. A cycle.
Yep. It's a cycle. They're trying to put in, they have more programs, I want to say, than they had in like 10, 15 years. But I mean, it's not enough still.
Mhm.
And right now, the new keyword is what?
Criminal justice
Criminal
reform
justice reform. Every politician is
is there, but you got to
is
break down.
campaigning
Yeah.
on criminal
Justice reform, but my first question to a lot of these individuals that we've had a discussion with is, what is your plan? What does that mean to you? Like, is it just a buzzword that you're using to get elected, or do you actually intend on doing the work?
Yeah.
And because it's just, everything you said is absolutely correct. Like, down to people being able to get housing. Like, a lot of people that they say, like, the first 72 hours after someone is released from prison is the most important, is the most
Yeah.
critical, because what happens, you have people that'll slide back into drug use. They end up homeless. They end up, because they can't survive, and they end up messing up and getting sent right back to jail or just doing the same thing. And it's not, again, the system is not set up for people to really flourish or be rehabilitated, and that's unfortunate. And I think the other part that is very important to point out is that there's a lack of humanizing your, whether they're already incarcerated or whatever. Most of the time, they are a number and a quota to fill. It's kind of like you have a certain number of convictions that you need to have to maintain.
Yes.
This. And so when that
They
happens,
keep the prison open.
to keep the prison open,
because they have jobs.
Right.
People have jobs in those communities. That's their job.
Right. And and what happens within that is you have people that are very much under pressure to make these arrests, that are very much under pressure to make these convictions, and they stop looking at the fact that this is a person. And maybe like a drug diversion program would have worked. Or maybe, if we had put that same amount of money that you're going to put in incarcerating this person for the rest of their life, if we had put it into schools or, community programs, we wouldn't have this problem to begin with.
Of course.
But when you become a number and take the humanity out of it, we end up with this.
You hit the nail on the head. They've dehumanized, pardon me, a huge section of the populi, and this is generally
That's true.
black and brown people.
Black and brown people,
That's
correct.
right.
We can't, sweep it under the rug. There are poor European white folk who are faced with exactly the same issues. They're shot down and murdered. They're choked out and killed in cells. Their evidence is lost for some strange reason. Other evidence is then presented. It is unfortunately a terrible system, and it's not until you get mixed up in it do you realize from the outside, from your comfy settee or sofa, and you have no connection to anybody who's been in prison. You'll see the television programs, the series, you'll see the films. Oh, if you do bad, you go to prison. That's it. No one really takes into consideration, as you say, the humanity. Now, of course, if you've done wrong and it is proven that you've done wrong, then of course there needs to be a penalty for that. Your liberty should be taken away from you, but it's about the rehabilitation. So why did you do that? Let's do some counseling. Why were you doing these activities? What led you down this road? Oh, was it just, is this all social deprived situations, or was it just all about money? Or because there is a population of people, a small minority, who are just wicked and bad, and it doesn't matter if they were rich or if they were poor, they would still want to try and harm people. So again, we look at the psychology. Where do we fit these people into what category? And then how do we make these people better people so they can be productive members of society, as the phrase is, right?
Right. Exactly. Like Angelique said, more programs for people, and also in Louisiana, we don't put enough money into mental health programs.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of people in prison, and they really need to be in the hospital. They really need to be locked up. But there's not enough programs for mental health. And it's crazy. We don't even have a mental health hospital anymore. Like
they cut so many of the budgets over the years to where, even in the emergency rooms here, people are having like these breakdowns and all kinds of problems, and the nurses and doctors in the emergency room are not equipped to deal with them. They have nowhere to deal with them. Then they send them to prison. But if you need to be on medication, or you need counseling, or you have all of these issues, or even if maybe you're having like some type of drug-induced psychosis and it's just egging it on, what is prison really doing? Or doing for you, rather? It's if we would take the same amount of money that we're spending on locking people away and put it into preventative programs, we wouldn't have so many
So many
issues.
issues. That's so true because, yeah.
I mean, if you have somebody having, they're schizophrenic or having some kind of horrible problem, what are you really doing for them by placing them in prison?
Placing them in prison, they may have, let's say they have 10 years, 5 years at best. They out. They're doing the same
They're
thing
doing the same
until
thing
they
because they
really
can't
do
help it.
something
They're
horrible.
right. They're,
It's crazy.
but
Well,
you know, it feeds the system. It pays the right people, and that's the difference.
yes.
And it's unfortunate. It's just you can help people. I feel like that's just such a sin to just
Mm.
give up and throw people away.
It,
I mean, if you have somebody that's like, they're like a mass murder or something, that's one thing. Like you said, I do think that there are people that there's a small percentage of people that they're just that
Bad
way.
people.
They're just bad,
Yeah.
and you can't. But I think you also have people that are very much the product of their environment, or like you said, even is this product of poverty, or this, that, or the other. And
Mm.
if you can teach people to be different, or teach people help, like I can, set a different standard, then
Yes.
you're doing something. But if it's just that's the answer, and then suddenly it's like your badge of honor to go to prison and do like a 10-year stint, and that's cool. Oh yeah, that's so and so. Like that's not normal.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be
isn't.
normal.
It isn't, Angelique. And I would go one step further. I would go one step further in regards to sin. It's evil. It's
It
evil and
is. It is
wicked
absolutely
is what
evil.
these people are doing to so many different people. And with the analogy you gave, someone who is maybe a heroin addict. No, let's go something a little less than that. Let's say someone who is addicted to opioids, so prescription drugs. They go to prison, and then what are they going to be exposed to whilst they're in prison? Strangely enough, in prison they're going to be exposed to heroin, black
Right.
tar,
That's
That's
right.
right. That is so
cocaine,
true.
That is very right.
flocker,
That's so
you
true.
name it is going to be in there. For some strange
It's so
reason,
true.
these
Yeah.
illicit drugs are widely available, and there are
In
people.
Right.
prison.
And if you're
Right.
already having problems to the point where you're addicted, A, because it's an illness, B, because you cannot cope with life, and that is the way you deal with it, what do you think somebody's going to do in a prison environment? I mean, I can't even, you just taught them to be a better
Mm, mm,
addict. That's it. Like you just reinforce the behavior. It's not like I feel like everyone has a choice, and there are, and I do give them credit, there are, AA and NA programs within the prison, but you're putting somebody in a very tempting environment in which you've got all of this pressure, because that would be like being in hell, and if this person is having difficulty, for whatever reason, whether it's childhood, whether all of the things that can make up an addiction or a reason for addiction, what do you think is going to happen if you place them in hell? Like it just,
it's inviting the
it's inviting, like
yeah,
more times than not, it's not going to be a success.
no,
That's
it really isn't. I mean, these 21 years have been spiritually taxing, emotionally taxing, without talking about into too much great detail your personal business, but financially this must have been like crippling, trying to fight this and this injustice. How much how has that sort of manifested? Have you had any support in that respect?
Yes, it has been over the years because we hired about
five,
uh,
6 different.
5, 6 different lawyers.
Yeah.
Some was gracious enough to do it for pro bono, and others we had to pay out of pocket, raise money. Unfortunately, we had a lot of support in that area where people would help us out, and also, but the amount of money, I mean, they can help us, but it still was very expensive.
Mm,
Uh, have these lawyers write appeals and to come back denial, the appeal be denial. So we feel like we lost money. Well, we don't feel like you lose money because the money is it's important, you
Yes.
know. I mean, because we gotta pay the lawyers, but it's just sad because it's so much money you lose, and we're not talking about the money we have to put on his books,
Mm.
not just us, the family, his wife and friends, and he always need money, to live while he's in prison. Phone bills is like,
Even though he
oh
won't
my
say
God,
it,
the phone bills.
the phone,
Woo, Lord,
we-
let's go there with the
we
phone
can go
bills.
there with that one.
The phone bills,
They're, yeah,
ridiculous.
like, to kind of follow what she said, we have been fortunate in a lot of circumstances, just, I've consistently pointed out that for every one of McKinley, being more high profile, we've been blessed because his case is something that people have interest in. He does have a fan base. He does have these things where people have been. It's not that it hasn't been a struggle.
Mhm.
Don't get me wrong
Not
on
by
that.
no means, yeah.
But like if it's something that he really needs or something that with a lawyer or things like that, people have been a bit more apt to have help. Whereas what I've said for every one of him, there's thousands of more that don't get their stories told, don't have the support, and it's just, and I think that's so why it's so important for us to speak on it and keep bringing attention to every single piece of this case, so that things will change because we have, it's like we almost have a responsibility to break this down and say, yes, we have been fortunate. Is it still been taxing? Absolutely.
Mm.
But there are people out there that still need help. There are people that they need this to change. And it's not, I mean, we may not live to see it, but we're definitely in it to try to bring, try to
Awareness.
be advocates
Yeah.
and bring awareness however we can because again it's hard. It's hard on everyone, and even I would even go so far as to say like just the attorneys that we've had over the years, it's almost heartbreaking to them, and just being
Yeah,
very
disappointing.
being personally
And
attached
yeah,
and whatnot
personally
to
involved.
it. If that's just not understand like here is every you know here's everything you need to show that this person is innocent and should not be here. Here are the facts of the case that we messed up, and it's like they just fell on deaf ears for so long, or maybe not.
What do you?
Maybe not deaf ears. Maybe just more of we'd rather be right than do the right thing.
Right.
Mm.
That's
Well, what do you put this down to? You're obviously a lot more closer to the case than myself, but from what I've seen, it he clearly didn't do it, and there was witnesses who said that he didn't do it.
right.
So I don't. Was it because he was a high-profile, no-limit artist kind of thing? Well, like, do you reckon that was the kind of reason? Like, look, yeah, we're gonna we do this, pin this on this poor gentleman, and by doing this, we can demonize this gangster rap sort of thing a little bit more, kind of.
Right. It happened in 2000, and that year, gangster rap was really popular at the time,
Hmm.
and especially white parents, they didn't want their kids to be listening to that gangster rap.
Mm.
So they already came in with a bias against rappers and gangster rappers back then from the beginning. And so when Mac came along, he was high profile. He was Master P, one of Master P artists at the time, was one of the number one rap labels in the country.
Yes.
Money. He had a lot of money and he flaunted and let everybody know it. And so when we go in a small town that's already corrupt,
Hmm.
all I think, to me, all they saw was the money. I think the whole thing was about money, because there are some things that happened that I never really shared about. Um, it what how should I put this?
It would lead you
That
to
will lead
believe.
you to know
Yeah, but
for fact it was money. Okay, I was
Okay.
approached about that, about paying, and everything would go away. Let's put it like that. So it
Okay.
was about money.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and since they realized that Mac was not as rich as Master P, so and they figured, maybe some lawsuits can come about. I
Mm.
don't know, but I think they were pretty angry about that for one thing because, and so so I guess what I'm thinking also is that since they realized that we didn't have the money, so they tried to go after Master P. Then in
Okay.
return, they found out that this company wasn't under Master P. It was a management company that my son and I had started together.
Mm.
So we just started it, and we didn't have a big budget, you know. And
they filed a civil suit. I mean, part of it I think was, I don't know, we have our suspicions of targeting. I mean, it definitely makes sense for the time period, whether it was Rap a Lot with Jay Prince's label that was right prior to that. Like you had a lot of rap labels that were, um, targeted in
Oh,
the
of
late
course, and Murder
90s.
Inc. as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
it's rap COINTEL. You can look it up. It's you can even see FBI files on Wu-Tang, and
Mm.
it's not. And so it was an attack. Like you had Senate hearings on gangster rap on video games. It was an
it's
attack on the
true. I
Christian,
forgot
the
about
nuclear
that.
Christian family. That was it was like
Yeah.
a conservative warfare on these things because they felt like it was somehow tainting, the good American nuclear family. And obviously that wasn't the case. You think back historically, they said the same thing about Elvis. They said the same thing about Motown. They said,
Yeah.
so it's been there. It just was the news thing. And I think in that community, you have to take into consideration that, the Grand Wizard of the KKK is still a resident there, David Duke. So you have this, like, it's across the lake, but it might as well be across the world.
Right.
Because, anything New Orleans, and it's funny because there is that stigma, my daughters have friends in Baton Rouge, and it's like, we're somehow like tainted or we're too city for people that are literally 75 miles away. And so
Wow.
you have that same thought process, like, oh well, here comes these thugs across the
Yeah.
lake. And so I think that's there. Something happened. The killing was there. I think that he was the easiest one to target. And regardless of what we want to think, maybe it was innocent. I don't feel like it was,
Mm.
but he was a big fish. You have this trophy, and you think about it. Within 24 hours, they had headlines on MTV and on BET and all this stuff with quotes from this district attorney's office saying, if he doesn't plead guilty, we're going to make sure he gets the chair. So they had already done the most in the beginning. So it's too late to back up and say, oh, that's not correct. And so I feel there's part of me that has always felt like, it was a little too late to
Yeah.
say, oh, I'm sorry, or, oh, they had to back it up and then stick with it. I mean, I guess you can give them that.
And the back and
They've been
yeah, they had this,
they've been
the bad part about it. Here comes the real shooter,
right,
turn himself in. So now they don't know what to do.
right.
They don't know how to handle
Literally,
this.
if you look
So
at
so so
his
what did they do about that?
interrogation,
About because when he turned himself
well,
in,
actually,
Yeah,
they didn't believe him.
they didn't believe him.
If you look at the copies of the interrogation, I guess if you will, they asked him to describe the gun that was used. He described it. They asked him what he did with it, and then they said, "Well, okay, thank you for your time. There'll be no charges filed."
Yeah, they
And
didn't believe him.
they didn't believe him, but they,
They
it's
said
just
we were paying him to turn
to
himself.
turn himself in. I mean, imagine that.
Oh,
Pay
God.
you
Yeah.
life
We were
charge.
This
paying him
is
to do.
it. Like how much more? I mean, like, come on, who does that? I mean,
What I'm
that's
talking
like
about.
some
It's
mafia
not
business days. That
Yeah,
just doesn't make no damn sense.
right.
exactly.
It,
Exactly.
right.
And to give him to charge him initially with first degree murder. First of all, this was at a small club. Secondly, it was a fight that broke out,
Yeah.
and someone shot the young man. I guess when they was fighting, but at best it should have been a manslaughter or
Yeah.
second degree, not a first degree murder.
Right.
First of all, and then that's why they found him guilty
Well,
of manslaughter because it was a fight. But
It-
Mac wasn't involved in the fight, and he was involved.
He was
He
on the other
wasn't
side of the
involved
club.
with any of
Yeah.
it.
Mm.
And
But
I mean, but that, his, not to cut you off on it, but
go
they
ahead.
historically, that particular parish, they have prided themselves in calling St. Tammany Parish. They have called themselves St. Slaminy
Saying slamming.
because of the their ability to convict. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean the DA. It seems like they have had improvement. The man, the gentleman from the office that was on the hearing the other day seemed to be quite a change. He was kind and obviously thoughtful in the things that he had to say. But historically, that you had this other DA who did serve federal time for
Yes.
it was like wire fraud and some other things because he had been in power for 30 years and he ran on unopposed all but one time. And
Wow.
so, there was memos released by the Advocate, a newspaper here in Louisiana, where he was putting pressure on his prosecutors, saying we're only at 98%. We need
Oh
to get
my
100. And
gosh.
so you can only imagine working in that type of environment, like
Yeah.
just kind of playing devil's advocate. You have that kind of pressure, you're going to do whatever you have to do to it. And
Yeah.
whether that means sliding evidence around or convincing a jury,
Hiding evidence.
splicing lyrics, whatever you have to
Using
do,
lyrics.
Yeah.
Lyrics against
you're going to get
whatever it takes. In a conviction.
exactly. If you have that type of pressure, I think that's at the point you either get desperate or get cutthroat or both. And I feel like that it's a situation in a lot of places. It has been. I mean, you hear some horror stories, and it's like somebody that really maybe should legitimately spent a few years in prison is spending a life term because they got caught more than once or for something like a possession charge or something like that. And it's unfortunate, and it's I often wonder how people can sleep at night. I really do. I could not deal with that if I had known that I had ruined someone's life, harmed their family in some way,
Mm.
because it's all cyclical,
Of
that-
course.
that's everyone.
That's what separates good people and bad people. It's plain and simple. Lawyer, liar, they're all the same thing in essence. I mean, if you can be a lawyer and you can represent someone who is blatantly guilty, but you're going to do your utmost to try and find loopholes to get him off.
Right?
No.
I had an attorney tell me one time it wasn't about guilt or innocence, it was about the best deal you can get your client. And I think that is probably more accurate than
But
not in most cases.
I've heard some lawyers was prosecuted, well, not criminal lawyers, and they were so sickened by that sometimes. Well, it gets to you, I guess,
Yeah,
after a
yeah.
while.
I think I guess I always kind of just question like where at what point do you not care? Like, or do you?
Right.
You hide
It
it
can
well?
get to you at
Yeah.
some point.
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I think moving forward, as you say, there's many people, there's many advocates, there's many people who have been falsely imprisoned, and 20 years, 30 years. That we can the names are infamous. They should be a lot more infamous, but if we can continue to apply the pressure, get the stories out, and most importantly as well, outside of that, taking care, we need to start to look at rebuilding communities again, as you say. Obviously, the government does have a part to play in it in regards to, providing structures and stuff, but communities is based on people. It's based on
Right.
Right,
culture, customs,
right,
how do we treat each other? Go back in the day when McKinney was growing up, we knew everybody, especially the elders. They would know your mom, they would know your auntie, and you would have to address them with respect.
right.
Where
That's
is that now?
I think I think in all of this, the thing that just constantly seems to keep coming up to me is that there's a lack of human connection. A lack of
social media to that.
yeah, that too. But but I think that we remove ourselves from what's important a lot of times. And whether that is in a job capacity where now you're looking at numbers instead of people, whether you're a teacher and you're just trying to make sure all your kids pass, but you don't really care about, why they're not passing.
Yeah.
I think it all moves back to the same thing. We need to put more
Connect
into
with
yeah,
each other.
human connection and just be
Connect with
empathetic
each other.
to, and just like almost have a reset. Just think about, I feel like, if you can think about how you would want to be treated, go back to the golden
Yeah.
rule. If you,
Treat people the way you want
you want to
to
be treated, if you were in that situation, how would you want someone to view you? And I
Right.
think that view you, treat you, whatever. I think that if we could all stop and have that pause,
Mm,
things would be a lot different.
That's true.
definitely, definitely. I mean, the point in regards to teachers, they are they play a vital role, in molding and shaping the youth, the malleable minds of youth. Um, and we've unfortunately, I would say we've got 60+% of those people in those positions who are only in it for a paycheck. Gone are the days of having pride in your job, whether you flip burgers, whether you pick trash up, whether you teach the future, the potential future leaders, movers and shakers. No one really takes pride in their job anymore. It's just about clocking in, clocking out, getting your money, and living your best life.
I do think I will kind of disagree with you a little bit on teachers, and it's only because I do have family members that are teachers. Even my grandmother and my mother. My mother was a special ed teacher for a while, and she quit because she couldn't deal with the way the principal wanted her to deal with the kids because she was very attached to them. They felt like this was back in the 70s when they put these kids and treat them like animals, and she didn't agree with that. My grandmother was a teacher for 4 years. My cousin's actually a principal in the school. I've got another cousin that is a school teacher at a high school. And that being said, there are good educators. I don't know that they are necessarily supported the way that they need to be. I know discussions with my cousin, she's not ever had anything that she needed to fully support the students. She's come out of her own pocket in a lot of cases. And when you're dealing with that and you're making a minimal amount of money for a thankless job, it's very tough. And I think that even on the flip side, as parents, we have to do better. We expect these teachers
I was gonna say that.
these teachers to just perform miracles, and now
Sometimes the
pandemic,
teachers are
yeah.
babysitters.
they're expecting them to be babysitters, and now we're feeling the brunt of it
That's right.
with our children at home in a lot of
That's
cases.
right.
So, it's and
I was gonna say
yeah.
that. You took the word out of my mouth. Parents need to step
we
up.
need to step up. But it's I think you do. You do have people. You have people that graduate college, and that's the only job they can get. Well, I'm gonna go be a teacher for a couple of years and put it on my resume. But
Yeah.
you do honestly have people that love these kids and
Yes.
want something. You don't go into that profession and stay in it and for forever. But unfortunately, you deal with things like teaching the test. Like you have a lot of pressures there too to make
Mhm.
sure that your kids are achieving those scores. they're not really, what are they really learning? And then, if you don't have the things that you need to support these kids, it makes it very difficult, and it's, um, and in a lot of cases, like even within the charter system here, have, it's almost like an executive level putting pressure on these teachers for these things to, create miracles in abnormal circumstances. So it's again, it takes a village.
Yeah.
You need to step up. We need to have more understanding and just take the weight off of other people sometimes, to make things better.
Agreed. And you do raise some good points. I mean, that is 100% correct. I didn't expect the same thing would apply over in America, but the same things that you've just highlighted in regards to teachers, principals, boards, expectations and pressures on teachers, and them not having, lack of physical supplies. So every week they're out purchasing stuff. This is insanity again. This then leads on to, not being able to provide a real good education. And then we then move down the line. You don't necessarily get a good job, or you don't even want a job. You just want to do something else, potentially illegal. And then we fall into that industrial complex.
Right. And I think, it's, a lot of it is very intentional, unfortunately. I mean, you look at, there was a high school that when I was in high school did not have air conditioning. I'm 42 years old. They still don't.
Wow.
That is insane to me. Like, it's hot there. It's like 100 degrees in August. But
I was gonna
you
say it's
expect children.
hot
Yeah.
down there, man.
So, I mean, it's like under those conditions, what do you expect? I wouldn't want to be at school. I don't know about you, but I can find other things to do. Or if I'm worried about how my family is going to eat at night,
Yeah.
or how, whether whatever, the support has to start early on. Preventative programs have to start early on, whether it's mental illness.
Maybe
Whether
more
it's
counseling need to be. Maybe the school system need to. They have a counselor. They may have one or two, maybe,
right.
but maybe they should have more, and they should have some type of parenting program or in some schools through counseling. You know what I mean? Because teachers can't counsel, babysit, blah blah blah, and then expect to teach.
It doesn't go
Some
together.
children are easy. That's just the way it is. My kids, not to brag, they were pretty easy. But I do know, and I do have friends with kids struggling, and they just didn't know what to do. They had to either stay home and try to take care of them, or pay for some type of
tutor,
outside help for their children. Yes. So it just never ends.
It never ends, and it's a difficulty as a parent too. If you are worried about making ends meet, and you're a single parent, a lot of that stuff is it's a lot. It's not that you don't care and love your kid or put them first, but it's a lot to juggle, and I think that is too where people tend to slip through. Again, it takes a village. So
it's a cliche, but it's so true. I mean,
it is true.
Growing up, I heard that and used to think, that's a nice little saying of sorts. I kind of get it, but don't really get it. But as I've grown older, I really
get
see.
it.
Yeah, most definitely. And I see the effects of that village not being there, that things are so different. As I say, just the common courtesy and respect of seeing someone who is older than you and opening the door for them, and just the basic things like helping an old lady across the road. I don't see people doing that no more. It's sad.
When I was coming up, I was raised in the 60s and 70s, and it was a village.
Yeah.
It really was a village. We couldn't do anything in the neighborhood without
you need help.
Everybody knowing.
Yes.
Everybody knows.
They whipped us in school. They did. They beat us with a paddle. They whipped us.
Corporal punishment. I think that in junior school, was the last time they had they gave corporal punishment, and we used to get the cane or the slipper.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
it's some people will say of I guess I would say of a younger generation. Some of an older generation don't necessarily agree with corporal punishment, but it's a deterrent, isn't it? Ultimately, it's a deterrent. If
Yes.
you've done
I
something,
don't agree with it either, but at the same time, I do know that that generation, my generation,
Fear.
yeah, what you call us, the baby boomers.
baby boomers,
Baby
that's
boomers
it.
they had a good fear, the fear of the
We had a fear of the old people. We had a fear of teachers, old people. Oh my God.
Very different days we're living in. Very different
Very
days.
different day.
And as I say, trustfully, the story, the experience can be a lesson to so many, and is I would say is a lesson. I'm pretty sure you've had so much feedback and emails and DMs, etc.
Yes,
So so you
yes,
know that the power and the exposure that your son and husband has
yes.
and still has, even though it's been 21 darn years.
That's right. That's right. And I believe when I first started telling his story, I knew that I would be able to I would be able to do that because Mac have a fan base, and so I knew it would be a little bit easier for me to get out there and tell his story and maybe fight for his cause. Um, so I had an advantage. I did have an advantage in that way.
Hmm. So moving for well, before we move forward, I've got to say, rise in paradise to the poor little youngster whose life was taken 21 years ago, and God knows what I mean, co- their family has thought. What do they think now? In regards to this, do they kind of do they still think Mac is the person that should be in jail, or do they? Have they seen the evidence and think, well, you know, that don't make no sense kind of thing? You haven't got the guilty person.
I don't know what the victim family is thinking right now. To be honest with you,
Okay.
I honestly don't know.
I mean, this is a situation where I feel like in any wrongful conviction, the, the victim, especially the victim's family, and then the person incarcerated, they're all victims.
Yes.
You never find that peace, you never find that justice, and I can't imagine losing a child, and my heart goes out to them. I can't imagine as a parent going through that pain, and then the kind of the wonderings of what could this person have been, or
Mm,
all of the emotion that it must be sustained for them. But on the flip side, it's like there's so many victims in these situations because you have the person that committed the crime, in this case, whether it was an accident or not, there's never any justice,
no.
and a lot of things, a lot of times you may have like a situation where, it might be like rape and the wrong person has gone on to prison and you still have that person out there. And I think it's an incredible emotional toll on everyone across the board. And, we can't speak for, the victim's family. Our heart always goes out to them because they did lose their son, and it's unfortunate. And it's just I feel like with this, we're able to balance balance karma of that in making things right and just
Yeah.
just helping. So
I guess the main thing for me is that the victim's family, they didn't get justice out of this. The right person is not in prison
Mm.
for this crime. And that kind of breaks my heart more than anything. I just wish they would have just some type of justice. You know, maybe they believe Mac being in prison is justice, but it's really not. They haven't had their justice yet. You know? And maybe one day they will. I don't know. But
It's had an incredible impact. You know, over the years, I've spoken with different people that were there that night,
Yep.
and there was one young lady that was actually interviewed by the Louder Than a Riot. She was there. No one would listen to her. To say, they turned her away. They didn't bring her statement, and this many years later, it still has affected her. She moved out of the state. She did not. She has two, black sons, and she did not want to raise them in this environment. And
Wow.
it's affected the way that she views everything. Like if it could happen to somebody like McKinley,
Yeah.
no one wanted to hear that he didn't do it. So she felt like it had shut her voice down, shut her truth down, and it skewed the way that she's viewed since. And that's the justice system, like just truth in general, like just being able to speak your truth and being able to have someone hear you is so important. And these people didn't want to hear the truth, and it affected her. And there's so many, people that were there, like his brother, his parents, his, aunts, all of these people that knew that this was wrong. They're victims in a way too, because it's, it weighs on you. It weighs on you, and that's unfortunate. And hopefully this being, changed. Like I don't want to say made right because it's not yet, but in some way it'll alleviate some of that.
It was an inconvenient truth, Angelique.
Right.
That's what it
Yes.
was. It didn't fit the
Yeah.
narrative,
right.
Right.
money
Exactly.
was the motive and was the only sort of thing in play, not justice.
Right.
Right. Right.
Right.
Is there plans to bring charges against the police?
You can't. In this situation, if it was a matter of he was exonerated and they could prove his innocence, the state, and this is very telling, for wrongful convictions, the restitution for it is capped at $250,000. So I think it's like $30,000 a year. Yeah,
250,000.
that's what and when you look at it in perspective of some of these people that are incarcerated for something they didn't do for 40, 50 years,
Yeah.
their life. And there was one gentleman I know they released a few years ago. He got his money finally. He died the next year of cancer.
Oh.
And it was like he didn't have the opportunity to enjoy freedom, and then these things are out there, but trust me, there's things put in place where you can't just do it, and I think that's one reason. It's not about the money. It's not about suing. It's about making a difference so this doesn't happen again to somebody else.
Yeah, that was my sentiment. Not necessarily for financial recompense, and to make a change, to make sure this kind of foolishness will not take place again.
Right.
Unfair, unfortunate. Good. Let's move to some more lights now. Let's move to some more lights. July the 30th. July 30th is someone's special day, isn't it?
Yes. Mac's birthday.
Exactly. It's soon, but it isn't soon. But let's see if we can send some prayers to the Most High, and he can put some things in place so we can be home for that day, man.
Yep, for his birthday. That would be wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
That'd be a great, and you would probably think that was like, it'd be hard to top that one as a birthday present.
Right.
This
Right.
is it.
What are you gonna get me this year? Freedom last year.
Definitely, definitely. So without giving too much away, what can we expect from Mac when he's free? Is he potentially, because you mentioned he was still heavy into the helping do music and that kind of stuff, and he had a band and he was doing the keyboards and things. So are we gonna potentially hear the camouflage assassin again?
Part two.
Maybe. Time will tell. Time will tell. It's I think, he can't get music out of the system, so he'll be involved in some aspects. What that aspect is totally up to him.
Yes.
Time will tell. It's one of those things where he has lots of plans, but at the same time, it's like plans versus reality are always
Indeed.
Well, I
sometimes different.
do know he spoke about putting a band together, though.
Yeah, he did.
He did, because I have, let me see, I have, besides Mac, how many more? 3.
Mama.
3 of my kids are
3 of them,
musicians,
yes.
besides Mac.
4.
No,
Chakra.
yeah, 4.
4. Yeah.
No, yeah,
She's got a lot of kids.
I got 6. So, well, anyway, they were talking about putting a band together because my youngest son is a trombone player. My second youngest son is a saxophone player. My daughter, she's a vocalist, and I have another daughter that she plays instruments, but she mainly do producing. And we're a musical family, and I have a cousin that's a pretty popular drummer here in the city. So they have been, maybe throwing that idea around about each one of them have their own. I wouldn't say their own band, but they're playing in different bands. One of my youngest son do have his own band. He traveled with
People Museum.
People Museum.
The shameless plug.
People Museum is my son Jeremy's band.
And they're releasing a new album.
And they're releasing a new album.
Okay.
He also toured with Beyonce's sister Solange on her last project she had.
Excellent.
So he's been touring and playing with a lot of different people.
Yeah, they're doing the thing.
His sister Tiffany was in a reggae band called Higher Heights.
Yeah.
Extremely talented. They're all, it's amazing, like how the entire family.
I will be very
talented
interested to hear some of that reggae stuff. Please do, Angelique, send me a link of that if you can.
Yeah, you can look at, well, she's not performing at this moment because she had 2 kids, but you can probably Google online, you'll probably see some of her own stuff, performance of Tiffany Phipps.
Yeah. Okay, well, I will make sure I put links below to everything we've just that we've discussed. Okay, links will be below in the description.
Yeah, Jeremy you could definitely Google him. Yeah, so he's still performing.
They're really impressive too.
I can imagine.
And they have a new album now. I gotta keep plugging it for it.
Come on, what's the album? What's the new album? What's the name of it?
Their band is called People Museum.
The band is called People Museum. I'm not sure the name of the album.
But we'll give that to you.
Yes,
but
again.
People Museum. Yes.
Yes, all the links will be below, along with the. I'll even put this. I'll put the social medias on there as well for you. Yeah, I mean. So as I say, I can see nothing but smiles and happiness moving forwards. We can finally close the chapter on this rocky periods in all your lives.
A few more bumps to go.
Right.
We're almost there.
Right.
That's it. We can see the apex of the light getting a lot bigger now, at least.
Right.
So nothing but success, love, light, trustfully, we're gonna, here potentially see, maybe a book come in, maybe, a life story kind of thing. I can just see so much potential and so much opportunity with them.
That's a, he been tossing all those ideas.
I can
We'll see.
imagine. Yeah, definite, definite. I'll put it out there as well and see, what I can do behind the scenes. Yeah.
We'll answer it with only time will tell.
Yes, totally, totally. Very true, very true. Thank you very much, ladies, for giving
Yeah.
us this update.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you want to impart or to say?
No, I just want to thank you for allowing us to do this interview. I appreciate it, and I had a good time,
I
really.
do too. Thank you so
Mhm.
much. Thank you to your listeners, and we'll keep you updated, and we appreciate you.
You're most welcome. From Birmingham, UK, to the uh, the wonderful land in America, Louisiana, the state. We have much love and looking forward to the release. Um, as I say, I will make sure I put links below. Make sure you go and follow all of those links, subscribe, like, comment, and most definitely share.